as it were.
Thank you.
We're being
recording.
recorded, so behave, everybody.
Yeah.
So tonight we've got a number of things going on. We will get some project updates from Jason. We'll talk about updating the charter, the few changes. Hopefully you all got a copy of that and what's going on there. We're going to go through, which Allison hopefully will be here by then to go through the process of selecting a chair and vice chair for our last handful of meetings. What else we got? Oh, we need to select people for the art subcommittee and for the history subcommittee and those kinds of things. And then we've got a letter from the Friends of the Library that Paul had sent that we want to touch base on. We should have time for that, hopefully there at the end. So let's see, somewhere I loaded a list of who's all on this group. So we'll go through a roll call. Did I see Ron? Did he make it? Oh, Ron, you're there.
But I think we lost Paul.
No.
Oh, Paul's right
Oh,
there.
there you are. All right, hiding in the middle.
Sometimes it's hard to spot. So Ron Campbell.
You guys need to quit moving around on this screen. Stop it.
Let's see, Mark Elliott. Not here tonight. Dennis Hickey.
Here.
Saw you. Kim Parman.
Here.
Hi, Kim. Rose Ojeda. I don't see her. Mike Schmier.
Here.
Christy Switzer.
Here.
Michael Newgard. I know you're here. I didn't hear you, but good to see you, Michael. Oh, I'm not hearing you. I can tell you're talking, but I didn't hear anything. I don't know about
He's
the rest of you.
muted.
No, he wasn't muted.
I see a slash through his microphone.
Oh, he is now. He unmuted,
There.
but we still can't hear you.
No.
Well, good to see you anyway. If you've got something to pipe in later, we'll try and make sure we've got the technical issues taken care of. Let's see. Then there's Grover Bornefeld.
Present.
Jan Lindstrom. I'm here. Doug Jones. Shonda Wild. She sometimes calls in. All right. And Gary Bukowski.
Present.
There we are. All right. Let's see. Jason, do you want to introduce anybody from your team?
That's just me tonight from my team, and then we've got Liz Manser with Opsis here. And then hopefully at some point we will have Allison Brown to help facilitate all the
Sure.
chair and vice chair election.
All right. So, Jason, do you want to go ahead and go into project updates?
Yeah. So actually today was a big step for us in the process of keeping this project moving forward. We went to the board today with a resolution to go for the CMGC bid exemption, and they approved it. So we, in pretty short order here, early July, we should be sending out an RFP to select a CMGC for the project. So it's a pretty big step to help keep us moving along, and they'll be a big help to keep us on schedule, on budget, and all that. So yes, Doug.
Am I the only one who doesn't know what CMGC stands for?
Oh,
No,
maybe
there's
not.
lots of
Sorry.
I'm just
I forget,
pretending I know.
Not talking to everybody's contractor. So what a CMGC is, it stands for Construction Manager / General Contractor. And what this is, you know, in a normal process, you design a project, then you go out to bid and you select a contractor based on the lowest price. And that happens after the design is pretty much done. What we're doing here is we are bringing on a contractor during design or during the early part of design, and they partner with us and with OPSIS, and we work as a team to make sure that, you know, we're thinking of all the different issues that might come up in design. They help us with scheduling. You know, they have access to like real-time, you know, market costs for materials and labor. So it's just, you know, for a small price, it's that partnership can really save a project and keep it running smoothly and on budget by doing that. So yeah, this is a, you know, it's a very complex project. You've got an existing building you're renovating, and you've got a new building you're tying that, you know, together in a way. So we need to bring on that expertise for this project. So yeah, it was a big win, and the board didn't have any issues with us going forward with that. So hopefully by the end of August, early September, we'll have a new GC on board is the idea. Does anybody else have any questions about that or comments? Yeah, Ron.
Did I hear you say the choice of contractor is based on the lowest bid?
No, that would be the normal, sorry, that's in the normal process. In this process, we can, I mean, we don't make up the what we select them on, but we, you know, we can pick somebody based on, you know, their expertise or their experience, you know, in building facilities like this. Their project team, we can see they'll have to tell us who's going to be on their project team, what their experience is, and how, you know, they've worked in this process before on other projects. So there's a lot of different factors where you can basically, you can select it based on what we would say would be the best fit and not necessarily the lowest price.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Good answer.
Yeah, Mike.
When do you anticipate putting out the RFP?
When?
Yes,
Probably the second week of July
oh,
is what we're shooting for.
2.5
So
weeks.
yeah, yep. So it's pretty close. We just got to go through our internally to get that ready to go out on the street. So yep, it'll be out shortly. Yes, Gary.
I had the question sort of like Mike just asked, but to sort of follow up on that, what sort of response do you expect? How many bids do you think you will get? What would be not enough?
I mean, I've personally, I shouldn't say I have. I've personally reached out to 6 or 7 contractors that are very interested in this pack, in all of these, because here's the other thing I'll say, we're packaging, you know, Gladstone and this project together to make it, you know, more attractive. And there's 6 or 7 that I've talked to. I know our team has reached out to probably like a dozen that have said they're very interested in it. So I'm hoping, you know, we get north of 20, you know, maybe 20 to 30 that would be interested. But yeah, and then we'll shortlist down to, from however many, we'll shortlist down to probably like 3 that we'll do further interviews with before we select.
Okay.
So yeah, these projects, I think Concord especially is because of being a historic building and, you know, having a library and a park, all that, it makes it a little more interesting to a lot of the local contractors to work on that project. And it's got a lot of community engagement too. So any other questions on that? So I guess the other thing, and I'll speak for Liz a little bit, and she wants to add to it, she can, but so we've just completed the SD drawing, schematic design drawings for Concord. And we are in the process right now of putting together a cost estimate based on this version of the drawings. And that process will take a couple, 2 or 3 weeks for us to go through, make sure we have everything in the scope that's shown, and to put that together. And then once we feel like we've got that ready to show, we will, in the future, probably early August, set up a meeting to kind of review what those drawings look like with this task force. Liz, did you want to add anything to that?
Nope, that was great.
Okay.
I can show you a couple schedule slides tied to that, if that makes sense. Because I think this ties into what Jason was saying a little bit about, and I think something, it'll be also a good thing to keep in mind when we talk about the co-chair and chair positions, and what the commitment left is. So like Jason said, we technically wrapped up our SD design package, but we want to make sure that we present to you the complete package, which would also include the cost information. So when we come back to you for this next task force meeting to kind of wrap up SD, we want to say, have the full kind of idea to share with you all. And then we'll move into our design development phase. So you can see we've got, after tonight, our nice yellow star, we've got 4 more task force meetings. There'll be 2 in design development and then a check-in and construction documents. And they'll start to space out too. I think we've talked about this a little bit, but just something to keep in mind, they won't be happening as frequently as they did during schematic design, because the changes will be not as wholesale to the whole building, and we'll be starting to focus more on documentation. And so here's our 4 SD schematic design task force meetings. And like Jason said, I think we had originally talked about maybe having our next meeting in July, but just because we want to make sure we've got the full cost information ready to share, it'll probably be sometime in August when we have our next meeting.
Yeah.
I think that's the schedule stuff to share with you all.
Okay. So that's all I had for project updates to share. Oh, sorry, Allison.
I just wanted to say hi, folks. It's so lovely to see you, and I am deeply embarrassed that I am late to this meeting, but here I am. And I also want to note, Shonda, I think we've got you in the meeting now, but Shonda, I think your hand is up. Is that because you do have a question? Or are you just saying hi to us?
No, it was just to say that I've been here since the beginning. I just couldn't get anyone to recognize me.
You're here. We're glad that you're
Yeah.
here. We recognize
Okay.
you and see you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shonda.
Is it possible, since I can't see it, to state the dates of all the next meetings, the 4 next meetings?
Sure, and we don't have it fully worked out yet, I think is the short. We're just, our next meeting we're targeting in August sometime.
Okay,
But
That's fine.
Jason and I will figure it out, and with the new chair and co-chair and
Okay.
communication.
So
Sounds
Shonda,
great. Thank you.
just make yourself available every day in August.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I also saw Grover's hand, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Can you just distinguish the difference between schematic design and whatever that next phase you were talking about? Because I'm not, I don't speak what you do.
Thanks for the call. Yeah, that's fair. So design development is just when we start to make refinements to the design and start to dial into particular aspects of it, and then start to focus on just documenting the building more as we move into creating a set of documents that can actually be constructed. So our drawing set that you all, you'll see some drawings from our schematic design set at our next meeting. That set's probably this tall of drawings. Once we get into DD, I'd say it's this tall, and then it'll get, it'll grow another ½ inch or so. So if
Yeah,
I feel like
so
I
to
didn't quite
clarify-
answer what you wanted, Grover.
Well, no, I think you did, but I want to expand on what my question is, because, so does that mean we have pretty well decided on what because remember, we still have not seen what happens between the school building and the library building where they join, and seeing that area, and they said that that was something that was coming. So we haven't seen that yet. And I don't know that we've come to any conclusion about the exterior to the library. We're not changing the exterior to the school building, but I don't know that, I was not aware that we'd come to a consensus that it was a go like it is. And so you're this much and then you're going to go to that much, but I'd hate to go that much and then figure out we had to go back and change some of the core stuff. That's a question, not a comment.
No, that's the goal, is at the end of schematic design that the big moves have been made and the big program elements are located where they're going to be located. Our building systems are not fully figured out, but we know what we want them to be. And we've started to explore the character of the exterior and the main entry. But once we get into this next phase, that's going to be part of our first scope of work, is really starting to look at these places in more detail and understand what that design is actually going to be.
Super. And that also includes, we saw for the first time the very nicely enhanced park stuff, but it's still the parts are pretty well thought through, but the adjustments of and that is still going to be part of this next section.
Yeah, I think it's similar. Like,
interpolating what you just said.
yeah, similarly, we're hoping that the large programmatic elements of the park stay where they're currently identified, and that we're really just going through a design refinement of those elements at this point.
Okay.
And also
As is-
cost will be a part of that conversation too, right? We have to do a check-in and see what we drew for schematic design, how that priced out, and if it's where it needs to be.
Okay. And then my last question, I got to clarify that. So of all the schematic or drawings of any sort that I can see, there still is, like I said, the parts that I haven't seen, but also like along the north wall of the library, I at one point saw something that showed that there was going to be a landscape between the stairs / seats and the building, but none of that is in any of the drawings that I've been able to find online, nor do I have in physical copy. Is that clear what I asked? Okay.
Yeah, I think that we haven't, I don't think we've shared the full schematic design set, and I'm not sure what our process, I'll defer to Jason on that, would be, but I think we could target maybe doing a more holistic look at the entire exterior at our next meeting. So everybody can make sure that you've seen all sides of the building. And
Yeah.
And there'll still be
no,
time to weigh in and make some suggestions for refinements, et cetera.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Thanks.
definitely want to do that before the design development phase is ideal for that. So, but yeah, we haven't shared those yet just because we're still working on the estimate and everything. We don't want to share something that that maybe doesn't align with the budget. So. Okay.
Looks like Ron has a question.
Oh, sorry.
Well, yeah, to kind of underscore what part of the discussion was just about, I've been curious to know if that big brick face of the library addition is going to continue to evolve anymore, to break up more of those expansive brick areas and the coupled with, I know the roof line isn't going to change, but it really kind of accentuates that blocky roof line. So I've been kind of waiting to see if there would be any more refinements to that face design. And you don't have to answer that right now, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in short, definitely there will be refinements to that. I think that we're hoping that we can stay with that general massing, and we've been working, it's a balance that we're trying to find that helps establish the character of the library and identity, and also reflect the historical nature of the Concord property or the Concord building, and trying to find that right balance. And I think that we're excited about what we can start to do with that brick up above the windows and how we can start to break that down a little bit and articulate it more and add some textural elements to it.
Okay.
Okay, do we want to move on to the charter updates?
Jason, just a moment. Doug, did you want to do the minutes?
Oh, okay.
Oh, gosh, Dennis. Yeah, I forgot about that. I missed that spot. That was
Yeah,
in there
it was-
somewhere. That was in there somewhere. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully you all saw the meeting summary from the last meeting. And I don't know if there were any comments. The one thing I noticed that it noted that that Jan was not there, but it added Jan's comments at the end of the meeting, so clearly she was. So we might want to fix that. I think Jan missed the roll call, but was there by the time the meeting really got going. So that'd be
Yes,
the
thank
only
you.
correction. The only correction I would add, if that's okay with you, Jan.
Yes, thanks, Doug.
You got to get credit for showing up.
Exactly.
I have one typo.
Go ahead, Chanda.
At the end of my name on the last couple pages, there's no E in my comment.
So you were wild, not wild. I see.
I'm just wild like an animal, yes.
Okay,
Not
we can make
Oscar.
those changes.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the meeting summary before we approve those? Okay. If you're in favor of approving the meeting summary with those corrections, raise your hand, thumbs up, something like that,
Aye.
or say aye. Shonda,
Yes,
thanks.
approved.
All right, looks good. Thanks for reminding me, Dennis.
All right, are we ready for the charter update? So I'm not sure how you guys want to go through this. Do you want me to go through? I mean, there's not a whole lot of changes. Do you want me to talk through all of them, or have you guys had a chance to review it all? Okay. Okay, I can go through them pretty quick. It was pretty minor changes. It wasn't a lot of substantial changes. The first one had to do with basically saying that that you will serve as community liaisons, subsequent to the completion of the master plan through construction. I don't think it was clear that it was through construction before. So we're just changing the language for that role for everybody, that you will be a liaison through construction. Another one was just changing the NCPRD district advice. It was called out as a district advisory board, to change it to the district advisory committee. Another change was Clackamas County Library Board of Trustees. We changed that to the Clackamas County Library Advisory Board. We changed the call out to the Gladstone Library Board to the Joint Library Board. And then for terms, we are saying that the anticipated time commitment for the task force members, it did say 3 years before. We're just changing that to through the end of construction. And I think those were the only changes we made to it. If anybody had any other changes they'd like to make, be more than willing to hear that. Or if everybody's okay with that, we can. Grover, yeah.
I just want to clarify. So the Gladstone Library Board is now on the same Clackamas County Library Advisory Board. And you said something about, where was that part?
It was in where it talks about membership and staff support. It was the third bullet point where it just says
Okay.
one member shall reside within and represent the Gladstone Library service area. That member shall be recommended by the Joint Library Board instead of the Gladstone Library Board.
And what is the joint library board? I'm sorry, that throws me a curve.
I knew you were gonna ask, and I am not, forgive me, I'm new enough to this where I'm not sure yet what boards are what, but I can definitely get back to you on that and find out.
I would assume that would refer to the Clackamas County Library Advisory Board now, that's now the joint between what was the Oak Lodge Library Board and the Gladstone Library Board.
It probably is. Yeah.
And I would assume that Gary is the one who's filling that role, although he's not on the board. It's the wording says recommended by, and I can't imagine our board would not recommend Gary stay with this since he's put in the long legwork to that.
Yeah, and Allegra with our team just confirmed what Doug said is correct.
Okay. Because I know it is a 1 5-member board and advisory board, and so that's just spelling out where the different people come from. But they're all, I believe, that's good. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, the changes will all look pretty clear and necessary to me just to kind of clarify everything where we're at this point and going forward.
All right.
So thanks for that, Jason.
You're welcome.
Is that something we need to vote on, or is that just you're just sharing changes with us to?
I mean,
I'm not sure.
If we can vote if we want, but
I'd suggest that folks, if you can give a thumbs up if you feel good with the charter as is, that way we can know for the record that we've got. So I'm seeing thumbs up all around. Thank you, Mike. Shonda, how are you doing?
Shonda says yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we can consider that approved by this body and good to go.
So it's not actually this body's charter, right? Is that correct? It's a county charter. So
well, it's for this task force. It's this task force charter.
yes. So it is. Okay.
Yep.
It's all we got, Dennis. Don't take it away.
All right.
Doug, would you like me to, we've got 3 other governance pieces. I'm so excited to be with this group.
Oh, sure.
Would
Go
you
right
like
ahead.
to take it away from here?
Yeah, that's. I think it's about time.
So, hi everyone. Jason and Liz invited me to come back, mostly so that Dennis and Doug can be full participants in this part of the agenda as your co-chairs, as we go through the super fun task of governance. And we've got 3 pieces ahead on the agenda. So the first is selection of chair and vice chair. That charter document does note that your chair and vice chair serve for a year. So it's roughly about the time when that selection needs to happen again. So I'm going to run us through voting protocols for that. I think most of you were in the room when we did that the first time, and I believe it was a blisteringly hot day, and we were in the Concord school. This must have been more than a year ago, so we might be slightly behind on some of our governance pieces because we were certainly meeting in real life, but I'm going to try and make that less painful than maybe that first round was. We're also going to talk through or get some volunteers for service on the art subcommittee and the history subcommittee. And Liz is going to say a little bit more about each of those. Also, hi, Rose. Nice to see you.
Hey, everyone.
So definitely going to be looking for some voting. Shonda, we'll be checking in with you on the phone to see how you're feeling. And by the end of this group should be set up with chair and vice chair for the next round of work that you're doing, and also some folks for the subcommittees. So getting into the driver's seat, and we're going to start off with chair and vice chair. So Liz did talk through that we're looking at 4 task force meetings going forward, and that the chair and vice chair, Doug and Dennis, have been a wonderful duo, and as you just saw, kind of work together to support each other to make sure meetings go smoothly and that all the governance pieces are happening. So we have a couple of choices today. One, we could, if Doug and Dennis want to raise their hands again, we could reselect Doug and Dennis, or we could look for new folks who are interested in serving in this capacity. And I believe the time commitment is the commitment to come to the meetings, and then also time spent with the project team, so Jason and Liz, to review agendas, help set those agendas, talk through debrief meetings, talk through any issues that might be coming up, and making sure that the agendas reflect the needs of this group. So Grover, I see that you unmuted. Yeah, go for it.
I move that we renominate Doug and Dennis.
Whoa, Doug
Seconded.
and Dennis.
I second that.
Seconded.
That was seconded by Kim and Shonda. Doug and Dennis, how do you feel about that? Would you, I guess first question is, would you accept that nomination to serve in this capacity again?
You don't change horses in the middle of the stream. I remember hearing that somewhere in history.
There you go. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, Doug?
Yeah, my only thought was if there was somebody who thought was relishing the opportunity to step in, I would allow that. That'd be just fine. That'd be, I don't want to get in anybody's way for their ambitions or interest, but you know, we've got it down to working pretty well, and you know, we only have a handful more meetings, so I wouldn't mind continuing as chair.
Gary, I see your hand. Go for it.
Nothing against Doug and Dennis, but I thought I would try to throw Paul Boundy's name in there, given he's an architect, and I think at this point in the process, having somebody with expertise in exactly what we're doing might be good if Paul was interested.
Well, Gary, I very much appreciate that, but I really do not have the time for that level of commitment. So I'd have to say, you know, I appreciate it, honored, but I'd have to pass.
Well, it's too bad that Mark Elliott isn't here because he'd be on.
Oh, I was your second choice, Gary? Is that what you're saying?
No, you were neck and neck.
I'm kidding.
All right, so to Doug's point, remember that your charter also outlines that one, either your chair or your vice chair needs to be, one needs to be from the NCPRD service area and one needs to be from the library service area. I know that there's a list somewhere, so I do want to open it up if anybody would love to raise their hand. We could play the super fun game of where you nominate each other and say nice things about each other and somebody respectfully declines, but I'm really curious if somebody really would like to serve in this role or is feeling, you know, particularly called or moved to serve in this capacity as either chair or vice chair. We can maybe talk through what that means together. Okay, this is the awkward silence moment where you all think
Deja
about
vu.
it.
This is deja vu from
I
a year and a half ago.
I know, but it's like, you know, it's not quite as, well, it's almost as hot as it was in that room that day. It was very warm, as I recall. Okay, so your nonverbal body language, from what I can see, is indicating that I don't see any hands raised. I don't see anybody pointing at anybody else on their screen. So I think are folks feeling like Doug and Dennis, if they accept, we're looking at a reselection of Doug and Dennis as your chair and vice chair. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to be looking for, I'm not going to make this as onerous as a roll call vote. I think I can see everyone and I'm going to verbally check in with Shonda. So if you vote to approve Doug as your chair and Dennis as your vice chair, if I can get a thumbs up in your video screen and we will consider that a vote. I'm looking for a thumbs up from Jan or a thumbs down from Jan. There we go. Thank you. Doug and Dennis, you can also vote in this as well. You can voting for yourselves, your members here. Thumbs to the side. Okay, thank you.
I'm voting for Dennis.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And Shonda, was that a yes or a no from you?
That's a yes for both of them.
Okay, wonderful. So that looks like a consensus vote to reselect Doug and Dennis as your chair and vice chair.
Yay!
Yay.
That was fun.
Congratulations, Doug.
Thanks, Dennis.
I know you were burning up.
I'm happy to be
Desire.
working with you. And Gary, I assure you that we will be leaning on Paul and Mark's expertise as much as possible, as we already have, and make sure that, you know, that their contributions to this task force are definitely assets. And I'm having no expertise in that area myself. I appreciate their contributions, and will continue to make sure that their voices are heard.
Thanks, folks. All right. Well, with that box checked on our agenda and that item completed, let's move on to the two other pieces, which is talking through folks who would like to serve on an art subcommittee and a history subcommittee. I recall a very, very long time ago, we talked about the roles of these subcommittees as like something that would happen way down the line when we were at that place. And we're at that place now. So I'm going to ask Liz to share her screen and to show a few slides kind of outlining the commitment, or maybe no slides, maybe just talking it through, but what the commitment is looking for. And I'm noticing that maybe we don't have every task force member present in this group, but we are, I think that the hope is that this is a relatively smaller group, just to help with scheduling, which can be really challenging, especially as life kind of changes in these late coronavirus times. So maybe in the range of 3 to 5 people who can serve on each of these subcommittees. But I think if there's an overwhelming amount of interest from this group, we can talk through the implications of that and what that might mean to make sure that folks can serve and do the work that they feel called to do. So Liz, why don't you tell us a little bit more about art? And
Could I just interrupt
Oh, sorry.
just a moment? I thought we talked about 2 to 3.
Oh, maybe we did talk about 2 to 3.
Yeah, I think so. I think we'd struggle to come up with 3 or 5, but maybe not. And I don't have a horse in the race, so that's more, the more the merrier.
The sense I'm getting from that comment, Dennis, is really just anyone, please, who's willing to help, please come to some meetings, talk this through. So I think anywhere in that range, we'll see who's interested and who raises their hand cautiously or enthusiastically in a minute, but thanks for that. Okay, Liz, talk to us a little bit more.
And I'll share slides because I always share slides. I'll try to keep it brief though. So can you guys see, did I share the wrong screen?
I see an art subcommittee screen.
Okay, good. That's the right screen. So we've been working internally to develop what this means. And I think it's still a little bit of work in progress, but we're starting to get some idea of it. So it's a working group that we're going to look at public art opportunities, not just limited to the building, but also in the park and potentially the plaza. And we'll get, they'll provide recommendations and feedback to the design team. And then we will collectively share back to the task force and keep that. One thing to note is the art process may not follow the design process completely. So we might still be wrapping it up even after we go in for permit. It can lag a little bit. So there is potential that this committee may continue meeting after the last task force meeting or the final official task force meeting. We think there's going to be 5 meetings is kind of what we have preliminarily, but I think at our first meeting we can identify that more. The first meeting we think will be in August, and we'll talk about potential opportunities and locations and get input from everyone. And then hopefully review the opportunities at the next meeting and start to develop a short list of ideas, and then have kind of 3 sequential meetings to look at progress, and then the final, whatever the final art piece ends up being. So that kind of takes us from August through next spring. So
can I ask a question?
Please,
yeah,
go for it.
So the art subcommittee, it sounds like it's mostly focused on visual fine arts throughout the building and the park. Does it have anything to do with perhaps a bit of advisory on use of performance space or other aspects of art in a more general sense in the building?
That's a good point. I think we're focusing more on how someone would traditionally use a 1% per art fund. So it's probably going to be more focused on physical pieces of art. I think, Jason, does that align with what?
Yeah, that's I'm thinking it's more in line with that. So like just public art. on the site is what we're looking at for this.
Grover, yeah,
I
go
had
for it.
I had a question too.
Let's go. Let's go to
Go ahead,
Rose
Leonard.
and then Grover.
So hi, everyone. Sorry, I've been away for a couple of months. I had a couple of really large projects that I needed to get wrapped up really quickly. So it's good to be back. Will OPSIS be leading the subcommittee, and or is there an arts consultant who will be also advising in this process?
We are trying to work through that right now because we're in a similar process with Gladstone. So we're trying to figure out if we can have an art consultant. We're just not sure if it aligns with our budget to hire one. So, but we're just looking at opportunities to have some other people to help us in this process. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, let's go to Grover, then Gary, then Mike.
Right. I just wanted to clarify, because I appreciated Kim's question about the definition. Is it defined? Because I understand the 1%, but are there specific definitions of what that includes or doesn't include? And we don't need the answer now, but I would like to know that answer. And my second question is are the people who serve on that limited to only the people who are on this task force, as opposed to other people from the community who have skills, interests, et cetera, in that kind of work and have done stuff like that in the past?
Grover, to your first question, I think that the goal would be at our first meeting to really establish those parameters together, and what constitutes art. Although I do think we are focusing on physical art, but just what that means. I think that would be the task of our first meeting. And we've collectively talked a lot about the makeup of the subcommittee and gone back and forth. And I think, Jason, where we're landed currently, right, is it's most likely going to be the members of the subcommittee from the task force, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's my understanding, that it was going to be task force members.
So I do know that this whole project was kicked off with huge underlines to robust community involvement. And I didn't know that was just at the beginning. I actually thought it would be, I didn't know we'd run out of that, and we've fully fulfilled that and there is no more. So I don't know who's making the choice that it is only the people on the task force versus other people from the community. I don't know the answer, but I'm not clear how those choices get made. And then secondarily, the one about we'll decide at the first meeting. That means you need to get on this committee before you can take part in the deciding on what the scope of the art focus will be. And I'm curious how that got, how we got there.
Can you, the second part, I couldn't quite understand of what you're saying about getting the committee before.
Sure. My question about the 1% and what determined what was included in the 1%, the response was, well, we'll decide that at the first meeting. And then Kim's question was, what is the full scope of what the art will include? So that may determine who would willingly be on the art commission or task force or not. So I don't know that waiting till you've selected the people and let them decide, as opposed to that could influence who's on it. And it looks like Kim wants to talk, so I'll let her.
Yeah, thank you, Grover, for that. I think to his point, you know, for example, we're talking about there are members of the community who are very interested in having a theater space, especially using the old gym for that space. Would that 1% encompass like a lighting rig? Is that part of the art budget, or is the art budget strictly images and sculpture? You know, I guess that's my question.
Our current strategy, I think, with the existing theater space, if that's what you're talking about, is that would be kind of an independent design effort from this art budget. And we are looking at what scope would be required to upgrade that as a performance space, but not tied to this effort with the art.
And might not be able to respond to some of the other questions that Grover had about subcommittee membership. Grover, I want to note, kind of for really make it really explicit, what I'm hearing in your questions is also a desire for and feedback to the project team that they consider adding folks to the subcommittee who are not serving on this task force, who are interested or have experience in this in this specific topic. Is that correct?
I'll restate it, but more or less that's correct. I do know that there are many people in the community who have spent hundreds, thousands of hours leading up to even before this task force existed around what we wanted for a library, and then also from the park side, etc. And so the whole point of it all is promised a very robust community engagement. So to get to this point and say, well, we've got all that done, check, that's a concern for me, because we haven't even asked, are there people in the community? So my question, if you had 2 to 3 people that came from here, assuming that happened, would there be an option for 1 or 2 other people from the community, if we do outreach, etc., who would like to sit in on it as well? I don't know whether they get less vote or more vote. That's not important to me. It is the ideas and the consensus it leads to. So did that feedback to your clarification?
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that like sometimes a comment is nested in a question and that we're actually getting like, hey, consider adding more people, especially as part of the commitment to robust community outreach through this process. So thank you for that, Grover, for reiterating. Jason, did you want to respond, or can we get some other questions from folks?
I will take that back and I will think about it, and I think I can come up with a response. I just want to think about it for a little bit, and then it's not a bad idea. I just want to make sure that there was nothing, there were no rules or some other instruction to not do that. So
cool. Thanks, Jason. All right, let's go to Gary, and then let's go to Mike, and then Kim, I see your hand also, and Dennis. Okay, Gary, Mike, Kim, Dennis.
Okay, you ready? My question relates to, you're doing this same process with the Gladstone Task Force, and I was wondering whether or not the art committee is going to select a permanent collection for the Concord site. The Gladstone art committee is going to pick a permanent collection for their own library, or are they going to be shared, moved around? Do you have any thoughts as to whether it's going to be fixed, they select things and that's going to be it, or they'll change over time?
I think the way that the Gladstone committee is handling it is that they're looking at opportunities for permanent fixed installations. There is, we are looking at part of that as part of the holistic design of that building to look at opportunities for more rotating art, but that wouldn't be included in that the art budget, but that could potentially be for shows or community members to have like a gallery display. I know that's not quite what you were asking, I think, Gary, but that's.
Well, a change might be refreshing from time to time. If you've had the same pieces of art, whatever they may be, rotate, change with time.
Gary, I'm just going to put it out there, but sounds like you might be a great person to serve on this subcommittee.
I didn't raise my hand for that.
Okay, I know, I'm just putting it out there. Thanks, Gary. Gary, were there other questions that you had, or was
that was primarily it.
Okay, cool. Let's go to Mike and then Kim.
Well, mine was just a point of order that caught my attention when Liz was had her slide up. The task force, according to the charter that we just approved, goes to the end of construction, but the subcommittee might, quote, go beyond construction. So don't you have to revise the wording in the charter, Jason, to allow for that?
I think that maybe what I said was slightly confusing. I think our last official meeting as the task force will be during construction documents. As a task force meeting, we'll still have our grand opening and our groundbreaking, right? But the meeting for the final meeting for the art committee could potentially happen sometime even during permitting or after the groundbreaking.
But the charter says task force goes to the end of construction.
Right. So the task force will still be there, but our last official meeting may be complete.
Oh, will be a shadow task force.
Your
I'm
community
just teasing you
liaisons.
guys. I'm just teasing you guys. It sounded inconsistent to me.
Will be a secret task force.
Okay.
Yeah, don't try and get off the hook too soon, y'all.
Mhm.
Let's go to Kim, then Dennis.
So I just wanted to thank Grover for making the point about community outreach and advocate for doing some more of that. We did a fair amount of community engagement, especially trying to engage communities of color. And unfortunately, this task force is not a very diverse task force. And so I think when it comes to art as being a medium that can really speak to people and give people a sense of welcome in a space, that it's really important to make sure we have outside voices for this.
Comment. All right, Dennis, over to you.
There may be tremendous interest and expertise in this kind of project in installing art on the committee. That's yet to be seen. However, I think that we would be remiss if we didn't engage folks that have experience going through the process, actually selecting things and having them installed. Because I'd hate for a dog to get out there and people are like, what have you done? What is that? And it does happen. There is art, community-based art that people just like, what is that? So I would be an advocate of somehow involving more community, whether they are invited to the committee as guests or they're on the committee, or we reach out and bring them in and utilize them as consultants. But to me, that seems like a really something we should do, because art can be extremely political. That's also a concern. So that's all.
Jason, I see you and me. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Maybe we can just figure out how to do that. I think if we, through this task force, at least select some of the members and then see how we can bring in some people outside this task force into those meetings, we can definitely look into that. So.
Grover, go ahead.
That last comment exactly hit what I wanted to clarify, because I want to use as an example the Park Avenue station and the art that runs along the trolley trail and is at that station. That was all community driven, as an example. So it would be a shame not to reach out to some of the broader nooks and crannies where folks who may have skill, ability, and insight could contribute to being on this committee. That's the only point I really wanted to make. And your conclusion, Jason, pretty well hit that. So thank you.
Shonda, hand is
Yeah.
kind of always up, but I just wanted to check in with you.
Yes, thank you. I agree with Grover that we need to engage the community. I think it would be good to start the subcommittee first to kind of get basic parameters and then invite local artisans or people that have an in-depth background in picking public art to put in their sway. I think opening the committee to anyone who wants to come without all the background knowledge that we've had with this project would be a waste of time. But I do think that it would be good to involve the community after we kind of get some basics set up. And with that, I would like to throw my hat into the ring to be on the art committee.
Thanks, Shonda. Your name is noted as a volunteer. Thank you for that. I want to just note that I'm hearing, I think that the project team, Jason and Liz, have probably some work to do outside of this meeting to clarify what the way forward is, and we'll come back to this group. I think I'm seeing Liz cautiously nodding, so I'm going to take that as a yes, because I do hear the desire very strongly from the folks who just gave questions and comments to have some kind of community involvement in this, and whether that's membership on a subcommittee or some kind of engagement. I think there are probably a couple of paths forward, but that's something still to be determined. Shonda has put her name in the hat. I can't remember the metaphor exactly, but Shonda has raised her hand for service on the art subcommittee. We're going to talk history next, and I suspect a lot of these comments will kind of just transfer over to the history subcommittee as well. But does anybody else, kind of with what you know right now and knowing that some of this may be iterative and the first meeting of this subcommittee may align some of these things, but does anybody feel, one, that you have the capacity, and two, that you have the interest to serve on the subcommittee and want to raise your hand? Kim, I see your hand. Okay, and Christy? Anybody else? Jan? Okay, not to like do, I mean, that's, and Rose, all the women on this, on the task force? Okay, so I'm seeing hands from Kim, Jan, Christy, Rose, and Shonda. It's a little larger than I think originally anticipated, but also if you're willing to go and we can figure out scheduling and you're called to do that service, my guess is that that's welcomed rather than scrambling to find folks. Jason, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we just want to be able to make sure that we can schedule everybody, that it doesn't become difficult to get that many people together at the same time. So, yeah, it should be okay.
Cool. So as Mike said, clear your schedules. I think that was specifically for Shonda, but great. Okay, Doug, yeah, I see your hand.
Well, I wanted to clarify something, because I had thought I'd heard something earlier from Dennis that he had actually been an art selection process, been involved in the art selection process in the past, and thought he might have an interest, but I don't know if he's holding back. And you know, given what we've talked about, that having somebody, and I think he brought it up as a matter of fact, having somebody in this with some experience in that process, which is challenging. To be sure, I wasn't sure he was holding back because he just wanted to make sure everybody else got a chance, but I don't want this committee to get too big either. So I was checking in with Dennis.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug. No, it's good. We've got a powerhouse here. Are you kidding? We've got the five women here that I'm sure will represent the committee well. So, and I can stay involved on the fringe for sure. So thanks for checking in.
Yeah, I've been through this process before for another development that I was involved in Gresham, but we did have an art consultant on that during that process, and part of that process still did involve community involvement on choices that task force made to present to the community.
Okay. So with that, assuming there are no other comments, questions, anybody who's just been really holding back and like needs to express their deep desire to serve on the art subcommittee before we move on. Thank you so much to Kim, Jan, Christy, Rose, and Shonda. Really, as I think as Dennis put it well, it's a powerhouse.
It's fun too.
Yeah, definitely. So let's then do the same thing and talk a little bit about history. So I think, Liz, you have a slide or two to talk to us about the history subcommittee. I know this is another topic, just like art, that has been of particular interest to this group. So tell us more about that subcommittee.
Okay. So similarly to the art committee, we're still working to figure out what this committee does, and hope that we can figure out at our first meeting, maybe a charter in a little bit more detail and our scope of work. But we, as you all know, we're working with our historical preservation consultant and going through the State Historic Preservation Office to catalog what's in the existing building, and whether it's artifacts or art or the historical architectural character of the building, and work with them and document it, and then figure out a way to celebrate that. So what we're hoping to do is have 3 meetings for this task force, or for this subcommittee, sorry. It's a little bit less of a commitment, but the first one would also be in August, hopefully. That being a fact-finding kind of kickoff meeting, listening session to get all of your input about what are some important aspects of the existing building that we need to celebrate, or even the community. And we'll have a catalog kind of a preliminary catalog of the artifacts to review. And then we will have a follow-up meeting in the late fall, early winter, to talk about how we've been developing this what's called Memorandum of Agreement, and how we're going to document and celebrate the history. That this is what our historical consultant will be working on, and get your input on that. And then we'll have a follow-up kind of a final meeting to review what the final plan is, and whether it's a display or an online documentation of the building, or something along those lines. I think that we've got a lot of flexibility, so we're hoping to work that out with this subcommittee. And same thing as, and Grover, correct me with my phrasing, but this last meeting will be in the spring. It doesn't necessarily need to tie to the design schedule, and so it might lag a little bit past our last official task force meeting. And similarly to the art committee, we may have to have some meetings during work hours just because of scheduling, so just keep that in mind for planning.
I'm also going to make an assumption that some of the comments that were made about the art subcommittee also apply here, of ensuring that other community voices are engaged, and that it isn't limited in scope as far as engagement, if that's sort of correct to folks. Yeah, Mike, let's hear from you.
So Liz, so you have a what did you call him, a history consultant on your crew?
Yeah, he's a specializes in historical architecture, and he's helping us lead this process. I think you might have met him in some previous meetings.
Yeah, I think I met him down in Gladstone, actually. So you anticipate he would be involved in these committee meetings?
Yes.
Okay. And the other comment I was going to make is, like you said, Allison, involving others outside our immediate subcommittee. I'm the chairman of the local history group in Oak Lodge, and it would be a natural thing for me to solicit feedback from some of those people that have opinions about what this project should include in the way of history. So it would be natural for me to reach out to them via our my communication means to get that feedback from them. So I definitely would be doing that if I were on that committee.
Mike, I got a big thumbs up from Grover, and I think that's also a relevant point for the arts subcommittee too. You know, if you are community liaisons, task force members, if you have names of folks that you think would be deeply interested in this, or I think pass those along to Jason, or get in touch with Jason to talk a little bit more, so we can know the lay of the land, and who might really want to be involved and just needs to know about it. But back to history. Any other questions, clarifications? And I'm curious, Mike, did you just raise your hand to serve on this?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to serve on that subcommittee.
Awesome, thanks, Mike.
Kind of my thing.
I thought it might be.
As evidenced
We want to check
by
his
the photo
qualifications
behind
first.
What's that, Mr. Jones?
I was just wondering if we wanted to check your qualifications first.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Do we have standards for this?
Do I have to submit a resume?
You have to submit all the photos that you've used as backgrounds in every single one of these.
Oh, darn.
Rose, go ahead.
Well, I had a question. So the emphasis on the history subcommittee is really about the historic preservation of the existing building, or are there other kind of acknowledgements that would be made in terms of history of the site?
my first impression is that the driver will be the history of the building, but I think that it's a great opportunity to include either both the site and local community history and may be more encompassing.
Okay, great.
Any other questions or anyone who'd like to raise their hand so that Mike is not doing this task all on his own?
Sounds like a committee of one. Dennis, don't you want to take part in that? I know you're the vice chair, but gee whiz, look at the schedule that is involved. There's hardly any meetings. I can't hear a word you're saying. You're
I
not
think
going to
his
get away.
nonverbal body language is indicating that's a no, but you might be peer pressuring him into that.
Did you hear the first part that started with hell?
Oh, darn.
Not my cup of tea.
I do see Jan. Jan, your hand is up.
I'm raising my hand because I'm going to volunteer to switch committees because I could be equally happy on either committee. I thought the art committee might need more help, but it turns out that there's a lot more people volunteering. So I'd be happy to join with my buddy and fellow history detective, Mike Schmier, on the history.
Oh boy, what a
Awesome.
team.
Trouble now.
What
All
a
right,
team.
so Jan is moving over. So we've got Jan and Mike. Anybody else feeling particularly called to this work and have availability?
I'm sitting here waiting for Ron to put his hand up. He knows I was hoping he'd be on this committee too, because as much as Mike knows the community, I'm not sure that he knows more about that school specifically than Ron does. Not that I want that to be a contest, but Ron's been putting a lot of time in on finding out about the school particularly, and I could see him being an asset. But I know you're busy, Ron. But
Come on, Ron, we need you.
Well, I do appreciate the consideration. There are two reasons why I'm going to have to respectfully decline. One is that I know, I suspect, let's put it that way, there's at least one person in this group, if not more, that I believe are probably better suited than I am to play that role. The other reason is that as time goes on, I'm finding myself more and more challenged just to hang on to a membership on the task force. Or I should say to justify my membership on the task force. So once again, I'd like to just respectfully decline, and I'm sure that whoever volunteers is going to do a fine job, and especially with the guidance that Mike can provide. And, you know, I will mention though, and Dennis, I do respect your position on this as well, but I know that you also know that you have some personal history with Concord School, which I think is real valuable. But that's all I'm going to say about that.
Thanks, Ron. We're glad that you're here. Okay.
so hang on. No, Ron's got me thinking, because along with Mike, I don't know about anybody else here who's had kids go to Concord School and been there and volunteered there and helped out with things. So I wasn't planning on volunteering to be on any subcommittees, but I might be willing to join with Jan and Mike and adding my 2 cents to the committee as well, just from my insight on what I've known of the school.
You just want to keep me on the straight and narrow.
Plus, I know somebody has to keep an eye on Mike.
Yeah, that's why.
And I don't want Jan to have to do that on her own.
Yeah, Jan can't do it all.
That seems to have been met with quite a bit of enthusiasm from the video screens that I can see. So I think we've got now, to reiterate, for this subcommittee, Mike, Jan, and Doug. This is going to be a final call. Anybody else? Capacity, interest, willingness, feeling moved to serve?
I think this committee could actually, well, it's like the art subcommittee. I think it could be fun, you know, really.
Yeah. Subcommittees are great. Okay, let's not belabor the point. If you come away from this meeting feeling like you raised your hand in error and you're like, oh crap, I can't do all this stuff, or you realize that you really would like to serve on one of these, get in touch with Jason after the meeting. But I just want to confirm with the group, it looks like we have Shonda, Kim, Christy, and Rose on your art subcommittee. And you have Mike, Jen, and Doug on your history subcommittee. That response on whether or not, or how additional community can be engaged, whether that's on serving on the subcommittee or through some other capacity, is still to be determined. And the project team will loop back to folks on that, and specifically subcommittee members, to let you know. Your thoughts and feedback are welcomed. I think we heard a clear message from a lot of folks on this task force that community should be involved to the extent possible on this. So that's another answer forthcoming. Yes, Grover, I see your hand.
I just want to clarify, Jason and or Liz, I don't know who's going to be doing it, but the further research to find out about the 1%, can that, because I don't know when our next meeting is, and is that something you could send out as a communication to let us know what's been found out about that? Because we don't have to be in a meeting form to hear. And then I'd like to also know upon what that was based, whatever the decision is.
Yeah, we can look into that. I know just the 1% was just, we decided to take 1% of the project cost and allocate that to public art. I'm not sure if it's been gone in depth as to what is considered public art, but I can look into it more and get back. Yeah, before our first meeting. That shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you. And let me get back to all of us, because there was an interest besides those who are just in the meeting, on the committee.
Yeah, Jan, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what a pale, weird little hand I have. I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents, since I have moved myself to history. And I'm sure I could chime in on art, but I do know from the experience of the trolley trail that some places where it derailed within the community was bringing in artists from all over the country. When there are good artists here, it doesn't have to be like, oh, they must live in Oak Grove, because that could be for all we know, one person, but you get the idea. To kind of try to honor Oregon art or local art as opposed to, and I think they got in some disputes with the arts organization or the Arts Alliance over how that would work out. And then a lot of people don't even know about the trolley trail art because we don't have a great way of promoting it. And so we could do a better job with art overall. We do have our mural that no one can see on the back of a building, but we haven't done much with art since then. So there's definitely a lot of artists in this community who'd be interested in participating.
Oh, you mean that wonderful mural on the Oak Grove storage building? Oh yeah, that's a wonderful mural. I finally saw it one day.
It's a little hidden.
Okay, we're closing in on the end of our meeting time. So just to tie up those 2 agenda items, and thank you, Jan and Grover, for your comments, but I'd love to get another little thumbs up from the task force members if you feel comfortable with the folks who've raised their hand serving in that capacity. You feel that that's a good representation of this task force, and we can proceed, the team can proceed forward. Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up all around. Shonda, you feeling good?
Yes.
Awesome.
Both.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Governance pieces are concluded. So public comment and a wrap up are next, and I'm going to pass it over to your chair, to Doug.
Thanks, Allison. So maybe, I don't know whether to call this our first public comment, and was the letter that we received, and I don't think it got to the whole task force, but there was a letter from the Friends of the Public Library regarding the exterior of the building and concerns over that. Now we kind of touched on that. It kind of was brought up by Grover and Paul earlier. So I don't know how much we want to go into that further right now, Jason. If that's something is kind of going to be addressed sort of coming up still in a future meeting. But there was a letter basically expressing that there was thought that the exterior of the library portion of this project would be more striking and not quite so matching with the school, is basically to summarize the letter. Did all of you see the letter, or is that just something? Probably not. So it might be useful to have that passed on, forwarded to the committee, just so everybody can kind of get that input, maybe as something to consider when we have our next meeting. Does that seem sufficient, Jason?
Yeah, I had just sent it to you and Dennis. I wanted you to determine what you want to do with it. I have no problem sending it out to the group as a whole, but I wanted to send it to you to make that determination.
And not to be out of line, but I do think it does need to go to everybody on the task force. I wanted to send it to Jason first so we get the kind of the feedback and put it through the protocol. But yeah, some of the conversation was touched on earlier by Grover and a few other people, and I think we need to kind of just, as a task force, decide if this has, it's a voice to be heard. I mean, there's a lot of passion and a lot of past history and community involvement with the Friends group and the Oak Lodge Community Library advocates who've been working hard for years to get this library built, and to have it, just a little context, to have this described as a wing of the old school in the newspaper really hit a nerve for a lot of people. And I think the identity, the clarity, the importance of the library as a community institution is something we feel like, it needs a little more emphasis. It needs to be a little more in the study process, and the development of the design can, let's see what we can do to make this library really have that identity and become part of this community and not just part of an existing, 1936 school building. So I would appreciate being able to send it on and have the discussion more robustly as we move through the process.
Thanks, Paul. We'll make sure. I think we should be able to make sure that gets comes up in our next meeting. Ron, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I did. If you're done with public comments.
We haven't gotten to public comment yet, so.
Okay. Well, this is unrelated to anything we've been talking about, but I'm curious to know.
So Ron, can you actually hold that just so if folks are here to give public comments, so we can get those first, and then we can get additional comments from task force members?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Thanks, Ron.
If anybody is here to give public comments, you can raise your hand and I'll assist your chair in unmuting you. If you're calling in, you can do what Shonda's probably done and press *6 to raise your hand. But we're looking for anybody with a raised hand who'd like to give a comment this evening. Final call for raised hands. Okay, looks like we have no hands, so we can close that comment period. And Doug, I'll pass it back to you.
All right. And Ron, we'll go ahead and I'm assuming Shonda's hand was up by her phone, but I think that was kind of a comment. Shonda, did you still have a comment as well?
No, I just I haven't seen the letter that you're speaking about, and I would like to see it.
Yeah, that's
outside of the library, but that's it.
Yeah, that will be going to everybody on the task force. It was just
Okay.
Jason sent it to Dennis and I, just so we had kind of a heads up coming into the meeting, and when we could make sure it got brought up, at least brought up during the meeting, we'll be passing it on. Ron, go ahead.
I was wondering if there or what the status is now of conversations with county planning regarding parking capacity with all of the uses that are now under consideration, not just under consideration, but planned. The last I recall hearing, the discussions were still ongoing about how much parking was going to be needed. And I'm just wondering what the status of those conversations is at this point.
So we've been working with a traffic engineer as part of our land use process, and they're wrapping up their traffic report. And we also do the parking calculations based on, like you were saying, the uses of the building. So we've come up with what we think the preliminary counts, required counts should be, and are meeting them in our current design. And so the next step for us is when we submit our land use package is to get feedback then from the county on what we design.
So the traffic study has been completed then?
Traffic study is just wrapping up.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Jan, I see your hand.
Oh, thank you. I should probably wait till next week to bring this up, but when you get a spontaneous inspiration, sometimes you have to mention it. So I'm looking at the picture of the Concord School and the proposed library exterior that some people are objecting to as top heavy or too much of a wing of the Concord School. I just want to suggest, and I may be saying this wrong, but trompe l'oeil. So to take the roof line and invert it on the library. So it has triangles that go down where the school triangles go up, and the triangles that go down on the front are in gray brick. So it creates the look of an inverted roof, but it's really trompe l'oeil. It's just fake. That's just an idea that I had.
Thanks for that offering, Jan. Appreciate it. Any other comments? I think I gotta look at my agenda. Was there anything else we're supposed to cover? Oh, wrap up. That's next on the agenda is wrap up. Nice to see you all. Thanks for the participation. That was a good discussion. Good to have the feedback on all this. Dennis and I appreciate your support for our roles. We're happy to continue doing them. I think I'm assuming I speak for Dennis. This has been a great process. Oh, now we got hands. See you next time. No, I mean, Grover, go ahead.
I just want to clarify, do we have any idea when the next meeting is? Because it helps to get it on calendars as opposed to find out last minute. Do we have any idea?
Yes.
I think
Yeah, that's a wide swatch.
We're trying to figure out, it might be like the second week of August is what we're targeting. So I'll do my best to try to get as much warning as I can for that. I'm just trying to figure out how quickly this, on our side, our reconciliation with the drawings and the estimate, so that we can get something put together for you guys to look at that's, cohesive and makes sense. So we're shooting for early August, I would say second week.
Ron, your hand's back up again.
Oh, no, it's not.
No. How about Jan? Is your hand up again? Good. All right. Any other last thoughts? The suspense is killing me. All right. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe this weekend. It's going to be hot, as they say. And we'll enjoy your summer. What's going on, Gary?
One last
Charge your cell phones because there could be a power outage. I'm just
for
saying.
anybody who's interested. There's the last supermoon tonight. Comes up about 9:36. In case you want to see it.
Yeah, last night, if you live anywhere near Oatfield, last night driving south on Oatfield, the moon was big and bold straight ahead. It was really kind of phenomenal.
Gorgeous.
It'll be full moon tonight.
Yep, excellent. Thanks for
Yeah.
that.
Heat plus full moon in California, we call that earthquake weather. Not to worry.
No.
Okay, take care, everybody. Good to see you.
Bye, everybody.
All right, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.